you. That is supposed to bring in a lot of positivity in the entire atmosphere where it is lit. The team of Employability.life the conference. Ladies and gentlemen, our esteemed guests have joined us on the stage at 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together and let's have a big round of applause, everybody. A big round of applause from everybody present here. The Global Employability Handbook 20, a splendid publication which has been developed after months of research and study. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the grand launch, the unveiling of the Global Employability Handbook. Everybody of collecting their handbooks from the registration counter during lunch or maybe at the end of the conference as you're comfortable. एक बार जोरदार तालियां हो जाए सभी की ओर से. Let us hear a thundering applause from all the august members present in the house. He was formerly Senator for Tasmania from 1994 to 2022, representing the Liberal Party. He was the Minister for Employment and Leader of the Government in the Senate under Prime Minister Abbott from 2013 to 15. He previously also served as Special Minister of State in the government of John Howard, 2001 to 2006. Let's welcome Honorable Eric Abes, please. Please put your hands together, ladies and gentlemen. Everybody, a huge round of applause. Mr. Dilip Chenoy is the former Secretary General of FICCI, a leading industry body in India and former MD and CEO of National Skill Development Corporation. Mr. Chenoy spearheaded NSDC for 5 years, which aims to skill 150 million Indians by 2022. Prior to NSDC, he was associated with Confederation of Indian Industry CII for 19 years and served as the Regional Director for Southern Region. 11 years of experience in the role and was recently appointed as Chancellor of the State Skill University. A fellow of the Indian School of Business, Dr. Kaura also attended Oxford University as a Chevening Fellow. Let's welcome Dr. Sandeep, please, with a huge round of applause. Hosting the flagship news program, Neha completed an internship with the BBC's Parliamentary Programs team in London and was awarded the prestigious United Nations RAP Fellowship in 2015. A big round of applause for our guest moderator, please. एक बार जोरदार तालियां हमारे moderator और बाकी सभी panelists के लिए. Let me remind you that we have a fabulous competition running all day. Take a click and tweet about the conference using the hashtag I4IC, and the highest number and the best 3 tweets will be in for a chance of winning a splendid smartphone or a smartwatch at the end of the session. This will be running all day, so please.
Alright, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for being here this morning. I'd like to start by offering my gratitude to Manish and ATMC for having all of us here. Thank you very much, Manish, for the opportunity. It's great to be back with you and your wonderful team. As you know, all of you have already been told that we are here essentially to discuss a very important issue that really now dominates every economic discourse that we have in this country. It is about the digital skills gap that exists at multiple levels and how we can address this challenge. Before I go across to my panel of experts who of course will answer a lot of our questions, just want to put into perspective using a few statistics, you know, how huge and this challenge really is for the Indian economy. The digital skills gap that we're talking about, which poses a big threat to us. Why do we say that? Manish mentioned this in his presentation. 69% of the jobs in India are currently threatened by automation. That's where we're at already. So we're not talking about the future, we're already talking about the present. That puts 220 million people at risk in terms of their jobs. The workforce with the requisite digital skills needs to grow by ninefold by 2025. As Manish mentioned, just about 12% people in this country have elementary digital skills. And today, as we talk about Industry 4.0, the new tech and tech-enabled companies and industries, we need to recognize the fact that the talent landscape is rapidly changing. AI and robotics, as much as they present opportunities, they also present a major challenge. Not just to startups, but to companies in pretty much all spheres, which are undergoing a major transformation thanks to process automation. And that necessitates new management practices, that necessitates new evolving skills. Therefore, very challenging. The digital skills gap, how do we plug this gap? Our panelists here have already been introduced, so I will, without further ado, go straight ahead to Senator the Honorable Erica Beth from Australia, who is here with us on the panel. Australian universities and education providers are playing, not just in India, but in terms of providing opportunities to a very huge number of Indian students who move to Australia every single year, and in terms of, let's say, preparing them for the
study, and it is good to see the exchange of ideas and educational opportunities between India and Australia. Australia likes to think that it has a good education system and trains people well, but of course we can always do better and seek to improve. But the Indian diaspora in Australia is now the third largest group of migrants in Australia. The English are number one, New Zealanders number two, Indians number three, having overtaken the Chinese in recent times as the diaspora. And so India is becoming more and more important to Australia, and I'm delighted that with Dr. Virk we're able to establish the India-Australia Strategic Alliance some 10 years ago when people were saying, only look north. Some of us believe we should be looking northwest, namely to India as well. And today we have a free trade agreement, and that will help strengthen the bonds, and we have the revitalised Quad as well, which sees the strengthening of our defence cooperation. And so the educational cooperation that we can get between our two countries will be of great benefit to both our peoples, but if I might say, I think especially to the Indian students that come to Australia, and I would encourage as many as possible to come, enjoy Australia, become qualified, and then, should they so desire, and hopefully they will, return to India and grow their economy and their future.
Well, we certainly hope so, Senator, and I can personally vouch for the fact that I know of a very large number of young people who have chosen Australia as their preferred education, higher education destination. Of course, the US and UK continue to take in a lot of Indian students, but I know that Australia is right up there amongst the most preferred destinations, and the success of ATMC, I think, is testament to this growing India-Australia education partnership, which I think is going to be a major defining factor in the bilateral relationship itself. Okay, let me now come to Dilip Chinoy, since we have to really look at the India picture as we talk about today's theme. Mr. Chinoy, you know, the one question on everyone's mind these days, and this was very nicely laid out by Manish in the opening presentation, is how do we prepare our young people for the future? Because as Manish said rather ominously but very accurately, that a majority of jobs as we know them today will cease to exist perhaps a decade and a half from now. Therefore, how do we prepare for that future keeping in mind the enormous challenge that we have, that even as we take pride in our demographic dividend, we know there is this enormous digital skills gap that exists in this country. How do we plug this?
Thank you, Nia, for that question, and thank you, Manish, for having me here. What was not mentioned when I was being introduced was that I was actually the co-chair of the Australia-India Skills Working Group for 3 years, 4 years actually. It's very simple. When Manish was actually speaking, he said we tend to overestimate the short term and underestimate the long term. Right? Now, in the skills gap, there's a very, very simple solution. It's not rocket science. And we have Kirti here. So, Kirti is a sector skill council. We of course have the newly appointed Skills University, Punjab there. So, it's what needs to be done. I think the first thing is that there are 3 elements in this whole thing. You took the student last, but the student is first. The academic institutions are second, and then you have industry. So, till about 5 years ago, about 8 years ago, there was no signaling available from industry to academia or to students. What is the job potential that is required or available in different sectors, and what are the competencies that are required to be taught by the academic institutions so that the students actually realizing the job potential can also be trained to be job ready on employability rate. Now, if I take NASCOM and if I take digital, and I'm sure people will talk about it, no senior factor. They have developed job roles with competencies. Now, any education institution can take those job roles and competencies, put them, translate them into curriculum, and do a variety of things. They can do a full undergraduate course, they can do a postgraduate course, they can do a PhD, they can add on courses to the existing curriculum to make the students ready. Unfortunately, what is happening is there's a competition and there's a kind of understated belief that academic institutions can do this independently of industry, and if academic institutions go to company A, B, or C, they can develop their own curriculum and they can do that. Cooperation is the next form of competition. So the first thing that you need to do is you got industry to collaborate. Industry to look at creating job role definitions, competencies, that means skills, attitude, and knowledge that are required to fulfill that job role, share it in the wider public. All those job roles, the digital space are actually available on the NASCOM Sector Skill Council website. It's not rocket science. They are willing to work with the academic institutions to develop the curriculum. You will hear later from one of the panelists about she will mention it. I used to chair a university in Punjab. We wanted to translate that course into that university. We found that there were no adequate faculty to teach particular parts of that curriculum. So the faculty have to be upgraded. Now only last year guest faculty have been allowed to come in so you can get professionals from industry. So it's very, very simple. It's not a rocket science. You can actually do it overnight. But if you create competition and something is there that Australia has a system of awarding bodies. Australia has a system of sector skill councils. When we studied it, we felt that there should be only one sector skill council, not multiple awarding bodies. Because multiple awarding bodies will create the same problem that you're trying to solve with the centralized university entrance exam, because nobody can judge Bihar school board versus a Maharashtra school board versus a Tamil Nadu school board versus a Punjab school board versus CBSE. So it's a very, very simple. Okay? Step 1, get industry together under a sector council or whatever it is to create the job roles and the competencies. Step 2, work with the academicians to actually create curriculum and parallelly put out into the digital space what are the job opportunities that could be in the different sectors and what is the competencies required there. Simple. If you put this out, you coordinate as a nation to get it done, you will transform the country. That's it.
Well, I think Mr. Chinoy, you gave some excellent points there. It might sound very elementary, and yet I think we have a long way to go in perhaps achieving this very important collaboration that he is talking about. So let me take this now to PT State, CEO of Sector Skill Counter NASCOM. Ms. State, I think, like I just said, Mr. Chinoy makes an excellent point. Do you believe that we need a much greater collaboration between educational institutions and industry? Because ultimately, these two have to come together to offer our youth the kind of opportunities that they need to prepare them for a bright future, a bright career that they hope to have when they go to these fancy institutes and get those fancy degrees, but not necessarily end up with the right skill set that they might need to make it in those industries. Of course, people like Indonesian institutions like Educator are already doing a stellar job in bridging this gap that we're talking about. But how do we ensure that this democratic dividend that India talks so much about does not turn into a democratic disaster?
Thanks, Neha, and great to be here, and great to have co-panelists who setting up what I need to say so nicely. So thank you for that. I think first of all, what you say comes true. So I don't want to talk about a demographic disaster.
My apologies.
It is going to be a demographic dividend.
I was hoping not to have to use that term, but I just will be pragmatic.
So let's not. So I would say that I'm an optimist, and a lot of what Dilip says about step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4 is absolutely bang on point. The devil is in the details, because we can plan, we can create strategy, we can create a vision, but execution is where things fall flat. And why do they fall flat? So I'll take the example of, he talked about the competency framework. I will tell everybody in this room that the competency framework that has been set up by NSDC and all the Sector Skills Council working with the National Skill Development Corporation is just fantastic. Nobody knows about it. It's sitting on our website. And particularly when you look at it for the emerging technologies, this is a conference about digital skills. So very painstakingly, with industry work groups for every one of these technologies, whether it's, I think I have some members of the work groups here, talking about whether it's AI, whether it's big data, robotics, blockchain, we have industry groups coming together, creating these competencies, creating an occupational map, a ladder of where do you go if you learn, what do you need to learn. So what happens? Why don't people use it? And I'll give you another example of how when people use it, what happens. So there was a company, I can't name it, which is about 16,000 people in technology, and they were going to set up they were re-looking at their competency framework because with all these new technologies coming in, it's new job roles, new ways of doing things, so what do you do? So they were going to give a contract to a large consulting company, why not? And consulting companies will obviously consult. So they gave them a very nice proposal, nice and juicy. Till one day, we just happened to go and meet them and we showed them what work we had done. So they said, hey, wait a minute, how much did you charge for this? So we said, nothing, it's on our website. So they said, but this is what we're asking this consulting company to do. So we said, don't. So simple as that. And so they didn't. So they actually saved boatloads of money by simply using this competency framework, which is defining a job role, taking competencies, splitting it up into performance criteria. You can design your assessments, you can design your job role. So that's one very cool thing I would advise all of you to look at. Second, the regulator, we have a new regulator for skills called National Council for Vocational Education and Training. They have decided that we need a little openness in our work. So you will be very happy to know that they are breaking up this QP structure, which is the bane of all our existence. But they're saying that instead of job role-based qualifications, let's look at competency-based qualifications. And I heard the word micro-credentials. So they're also looking at making micro-credentials approved. Now what this means is, it's very, very significant. Because this means that when you have a approved, a validated course, and under the new education policy, where a national credit framework is being developed, all these courses become eligible for credits with this valid accreditation. So colleges can pick up these courses, and this gap that we are seeing right now, at least in the short term, they can plug it very quickly because the new education policy also allows 40% of the curriculum to be taught online, blended learning through external things. So from the policy framework, a lot of it is coming together. But we again need to come back to execution, because how will we make this happen across colleges is the reality. So, in 2018, NASCOM signed an MOU with the Ministry of IT for a program called Future Skills Prime. The idea was to take digital skills to every Indian citizen. We also took a big call, actually a very revolutionary call to say that digital skilling is not just about certifications, it's also about building awareness. Because if you don't know what these technologies are, what are you going to learn, why are you going to learn it, who knows what is AI? Who knows what is blockchain? Everybody only knows about hacking and black hooded guys in dark rooms sitting on computers when we talk about cybersecurity. But cybersecurity is a whole lot more. So if you don't know about it, why would you learn it? So digital fluency was brought into that platform. This platform is available to all. So to your point of collaboration, to say kill the competition amongst colleges, this platform helps to do that because it's open to all. What about collaboration with academia? Yes, every company is going to colleges and creating programs with them, but under this framework, the National Skills Qualification Framework, we are talking to industry to say, hey, so we're changing the paradigm of how we build these competencies. Earlier, we used to take a work group, build the competencies framework, and say, hey, use it. Now we say no. Industry, come in, you tell us the content, you tell us the competencies, you look at our certification, and then you promise that you are going to recognize this certification. The biggest challenge in scaling has been the recognition of this accreditation, this credential. Is it valuable? If your credential is valuable, people will use it. So if it comes from industry and it has that pull after it, it will be valuable. So things are moving, hence my optimism. And once this momentum picks up, I think we will be making real steps towards plugging the gap.
Well, I think everyone in this room would certainly want to share your optimism on that. Thank you so much for laying out beautifully the roadmap, really, for the future. Let me now go across to our next guest, Dr. Sandeep Kaura, who's advisor to the Government of Punjab in the Skills Development Technical Education Department. Dr. Kaura, we are a country of many paradoxes, one of which I strongly believe is this, that on the one hand, we constantly talk about the growing job crisis in this country, which is a reality which we cannot run away from. Some might tell you we have unprecedented unemployment in India right now. On the other hand, we hear industry voices complain about a talent deficit. They say they just can't seem to find the kind of talent they're looking for the kind of job opportunities that exist, but which they can't seem to offer to the people who are coming to them because they don't seem to have those requisite skill sets. So the question again is, how do you plug this gap? How is, for example, the government of Punjab helping the youth in that state in, readying themselves for those opportunities that seem to exist, but which they are perhaps not able to tap into as of today?
So first of all, thank you to Dr. Manish and Rajadas for inviting me. Like all the panelists have given certain perspective, so let me give you a different perspective from the state point of view. If you look at the industry academia interface, when we say industry, one side say what you said, that they have a talent deficit. Academia is not able to place candidates, there are unemployment, and unemployed youth being turned out of the colleges. We have been having such many conferences, industry, academia interface. When I remember when I started my career way back 2000. Since then, I have been attending industry academia conferences. We talk industry on one side, we talk about something, academician will talk, but we do not shake hands. We move parallel to each other. We never shake hands. We talk, we discuss, but after the event, we disappear and we don't talk. So what we've done, if you look at it in Punjab, we've taken certain steps, and particularly when we talk about India, and like you just now mentioned, we are very confident and optimistic about our demographic dividends. But we should first of all understand India is not a country like other countries. Our one state is equivalent to Australia. And if I talk about Punjab and Haryana put together is equivalent to Australia. So what we need to do is Punjab or state level initiatives are very important. If I give you a perspective, what we have done on ground, we first analyze that there are so many institutions operating in Punjab. And if you say we have a higher education department, similarly at the national level also there are different bodies. Technical education doing its own role, and then industry department is there. First of all, we did was bringing all of them together under one department and under one initiative. We had a round of discussions. And the second thing what we found was that whatever we planned, whatever we discussed, execution was a major issue. How to execute it? Give you an example, like Microsoft, under the Future Skills program of NESCOM, Microsoft said that they signed up with NSDC to train about 100,000 people in India on digital skills. MOU signed. You ask Microsoft how many of them have been trained, they don't have data. But in Punjab now, when I say execution, we first went to the execution level. We set up a rural centers. We have about 200 rural centers in about 12,000 villages in Punjab. We have 100 urban centers and the 8 multi-skill centers. This paradigm, this like pyramid, what we have created was the execution level. You would have heard about employment exchanges. And coming back to the parent side, we have employment exchanges across India. And if you go to an employment exchange, you'll find old infrastructure, one person sitting, just listing the candidate. We have completely restructured employment exchanges. They are now known as District Bureau for Employment and Enterprise. So at district level, we have one department which will talk about skilling. Other department is employment exchange, which is DPE. Job is to provide or bring jobs in collaboration with industry. Both are under the leadership of the district magistrate, but the deputy CEO is the industry. We appointed in all 20 districts industry people as a deputy CEO. Now, with this Microsoft, when they came to us for a digital skills program, we signed up for 20,000. And they said, can it be under the same umbrella? We said, no, let us start. Let us show you the execution part. We signed up 20,000, and if you now ask them, there are 17,000 students undergoing program at a rural level, at urban level in Punjab under Microsoft. So we have been able to execute that plan. Industry, we have been able to bring together under our system. So if you look at in our model, industry, bringing industry along with academia, we have set the examples. We have a very great model of industry institute interface. And the second most important is like Australia, like Canada. Punjab is a one state which is sending so many students to these countries. And approximately, if I say this year, about 300,000 students have gone out of Punjab. And outward remittance, if I talk about, it must be around 18 billion US dollars. That has gone out of Punjab on account of students going abroad. So we have set up a overseas model also, which is wherein under G2G model, the province of the government of Punjab signing province of Alberta, we are signing up with BC, British Columbia in Canada. We are also going to Germany, Australia. And with the requirement from their side, we will be training them in Punjab through their agencies first, because we don't have the capacity as of now, and we will build the capacity. So coming back to the point, so talent deficit was there, but under Industry 4.0 initiative of Government of India, we deputed Indian School of Business, IIT Roper, to work on with the industry and see what are their requirements. Parallelly, all our colleges, universities have been, asked to work on the programs, not as an add-on program. They are integrated. So if you see now the program under Industry 4.0 initiative, we have been able to showcase and we're trying to bridge this gap of talent deficit with the close collaboration of Industry Academy. And one classic example, Industry Institute academic interface is our Skill University. So this is the first skill university in India, which is entirely sponsored by industry. IBM is the anchor partner, Tata's, NSYS Corporation, and we have a diaspora who has given the band. So this is an example where industry has come forward to set up a state-level skill university, entirely autonomous, managed, governing board, also having industry competition, so as to bring a kind of an ecosystem, to bridge these gap of skill, digital skills and other skills, what we are talking about, at domestic level, at the level of the India, at national level. We are trying to do that, and with the ministry at the national level also, we are trying to have such kind of model which can be replicated, at the national level also, and we can learn from other states to implement in this area. That would be it.
I have to say, Dr. Kaura, that all these measures that have been undertaken by the Punjab government over the years, which you just outlined, sound not just encouraging but inspiring. And like you said, we certainly hope that other states follow suit and can replicate this model, especially the skill university that you talked about. I think is certainly a model worth replicating. You made some other interesting points as well, which I will come to in a moment, but let's go back to our guest from Australia. Senator Adams, I have a couple of questions for you. Since we are discussing the challenge of employability in India through the prism of the education that we provide to our young people, would you like to talk to us a little bit about any employability challenges that you face in Australia? So maybe we could just compare the two models, even though, of course, I understand that demographically in terms of population, which is very, very different country. We would love to know about what the Australian experience has been like. That's one. And the second question I have for you is, how do you see the India-Australia strategic partnership building up, and how important a role do you think education is going to play in that?
Within Australia, we have got a very good situation in relation to employment generally. There is, in fact, not a job shortage, but the opposite. We have employers seeking workers, needing workers. We have the signs up in businesses now saying hairdresser wanted, barista wanted, shop assistant wanted, apprentice wanted, and so we have a shortage of workers in Australia at the moment. One thing that industry does say in Australia is that the institutions don't necessarily fully prepare the student for the experience of the workforce. And I think that will always be an issue. The question is, how close can you get industry and the institution to work together to cooperate to provide as qualified a student as possible so that they are fully ready for the workforce. But in general terms, Australia at the moment is looking for and needing people from overseas to fill a lot of the labour gaps. That is where I think there is a great opportunity for young Indians in particular to come to Australia to both study and work, and combine the two, and hopefully enrich their experience as students and then get a better understanding, and that will help develop the cooperation and the understanding between our two countries. Quite some time ago, there was the Colombo Plan, where students from around the Southeast Asian sector came to Australia to study, and then went back home. And it's been interesting for myself to meet with many a person in government departments, in fact in public life, who had been to Australia under the Colombo plan and then had gone back to their home country with a, thankfully, wonderful experience of Australia and were willing to sing Australia's praises. And as a result, when they were discussing policy, deciding on policy, Australia was in fact at the forefront of their mind because of the wonderful experience. In recent times, under the Abbott government, we had also a reverse Colombo plan, as we called it, where we encouraged Australian students to go overseas for 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, and experience the educational institutions and the culture of our Southeast Asian and the subcontinent friends. And that has also been a very successful program. I see the limitation of the India-Australia alliance as basically being limited only by our imagination. There is a full range of possibilities and opportunities that we need and can embrace, and I think in recent times, given certain, how do I describe it, sensitively geopolitical and other developments in our region, the strengthening of the Australia-India relationship vitally important, and it's good to see India reaching out not only to Australia, and that of course has been reciprocated by Australia, but I see India reaching out to Japan and a whole host of other countries, and that is vitally important because without going too deep into that which is occurring around the world, those countries that share a culture of freedom, democracy, rule of law, freedom of the press, etc., are in fact looking after a minority of the world's population. We need to stick together, work together, help each other to ensure that the freedom-loving countries of the world are not picked off one by superpowers that are motivated by a desire for a hegemony rather than a cooperative world situation. And what better way to ensure that leaders in various countries become better world citizens than by exchanging between countries, experiencing other countries' cultures, especially those countries that have those values of which I've just spoke about, fundamentally important values, and it is with those values that we can see our economies grow for the benefit of all our people. So I look forward to an ever-growing, ever-expanding relationship between our two countries, and can I say that the Punjabi at the moment is the fastest growing language group in Australia.
And uranium, it has far more potential than that. For the session, we were talking about the growing importance of sport, and of course, education is a very important role in this strategic partnership. I have just been reminded by the MC that our time is running out. I think we have under 3 minutes left to wrap up this discussion. So I'll take quick closing comments from the rest of the panel. Dilip Chinoy, let me come to you. I think Dr. Fora made a very interesting point earlier. Since you talked about the need for greater collaboration between academia and industry, he says we meet regularly at conferences and seminars and public events, but then rest of the year we don't really talk to each other. So how do we address that topic? There has got to be greater interface between the two on a more regular basis, especially now that we're in a post-COVID world. We know that millions have lost their jobs in the last 2 years, and there has been greater automation in these COVID times than ever before. You want to agree with that?
So just 2 quick points. First, just to inform the audience here, since we have the senator here, actually what NSGC did was we collaborated with the Sector Skill Council in Australia and for 82 job roles, where in your immigration website there was a shortage of people, we harmonized the standards. And so if anybody came out with that certification in India, it was automatically equivalent to it, but we didn't get into a formal agreement. And the agreement that we did yesterday with the UK might actually serve as a precedence for Australia to actually get that mutual recognition going. The second thing is with anybody, and this is an open challenge, if any industry says that they can't find people, just go to the Sector Skill Council. You don't have to spend money. I think Kirti's example is fantastic. They can guarantee you an employable person within the amount of time that it takes to train the person. Right? Or you work with the Punjab Skills University, you say you have a shortage of people, they will deliver the people. My only thing to Mr. Kaura is try and not create a separate stream for Punjab, try and integrate with the national framework, try and work with the sector skill councils. If 5 states do that and the country does that, you will transform the skills landscape in India.
Thank you so much for keeping it short. We're almost out of time, but Kirti said as we wrap up this discussion, very quickly, we see in the countries like India and China sending more and more students abroad. Why do you think that is happening? Is that something that should concern us, or is that something that we should welcome? How do you look at it?
It's two sides of the coin. I think it's really important to know that it's a question of the type of jobs that are going, that are moving, and it's a constant discussion we have about talent mobility and what's our stand on it. I think where there is a shortage of job opportunities in India, we should definitely welcome people moving away and for opportunity which doesn't exist here. But where we have a shortage and where people are going abroad to study things that actually could be studied in India, we have to introspect a lot more. Because what's happening is we are skilling our people, we are funding their education, and then other countries are enjoying it. So that's
really brain.
Why aren't we able to keep them? So I'm really not a big fan of a blanket statement of talent mobility. In fact, I would ask the question to say, if you are so keen, Senator, if you are so keen to welcome Indian talent, I want to know what countries like you are doing in return for India. Because when we grow them, we train them, and then you enjoy the benefit, we need to get something back as well. So please think about that.
I totally understand your sentiment, but the senator might say, well, is that really my headache? Well, your people want to come to us and we welcome them. After all, some of the biggest multinational companies today have Indian origin CEOs who we're all very proud of. But at the same time, I think this brain drain is something that we need to address very, very quickly since we're completely out of time. Dr. Kaura, Mr. Shinoy has a suggestion for you. You're doing great and splendid work in Punjab. How about spreading your wings, making sure that the fruits of what you're doing are enjoyed by people, by young people in the rest of the country as well?
First of all, I mentioned here, we are not creating anything separate. And we are part of the nation, and the only point is when we talk about our own requirement. Now, just an example, NSDC was focusing more on the GCC country. My youth is not want to go to GCC, they want to go to Australia, Canada. So we developed our model, and yesterday we presented to MSD, and now NSDC and Punjab government will work to design a model. Other than GCC, they will take our model, Punjab migration model, which will be helping. We are complementing, supplementing each other, and as we mentioned, and as I mentioned also, that our outward remittances have been very high. 300,000 students went out of Punjab, and now what we want from the country, like Canada or Australia, we are now tying up with them. We said we will not send such a outward remittances out of Punjab. We will curtail it, but we will welcome inward remittance. We need that one. We want to maintain that, but the amount going out of Punjab should be reduced first and then stop. We don't want much to go out of because we are already giving them a tail. Right? So that's what we are trying to do it, and I think with the support of country like Canada is coming up. We have signed up with Alberta, BC is coming up, Australia, we are working very closely with Australian High Commission and German. we are trying to have a model, and what I think I would want to assure Mr. Shinoy also and other delegates that the point here is we want to learn from others, and whatever we have done as a success story on the ground, we would like to share with us.
Absolutely.
And that is what we are.
And we don't want it to be a one-way street. We want it to be a two-way process, because at the end of the day, we're investing in a lot of this talent, and we want to be able to retain this talent. On that note, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us during this fascinating session. A big thank you to all the guests, the panelists. My apologies to you, Raja, for going over time. It's been fascinating to have all your inputs and perspectives, and we're hoping to get many more such inputs as the day progresses. Thank you so much.
Is present here on the dais with us. Dignitaries on the dais for sharing their valuable ideas with us today.
Thank you.
Mr. Dilip Chinoy. Chinoy, please.
Thank you, sir.
And a huge round of applause for Ms. Neha for sharing your valuable thoughts, ideas, and we will be beginning by inviting our guests to
Guests to this panel. I'm going to dive straight in with the topic of our panel today, right? And I'll try not for any one person for a specific question. Feel free to raise your hand and pitch in something strongly about something to share. So the real context to this topic of what's changing in the talent marketplace, right, is the pandemic. Clearly, there's been significant shifts in what talent expects. There's been shifts in what the industry has. So, I'd like to ask, what have each of you seen? What is the one key thing that you've seen has really changed from a talent marketplace perspective post this 2 years of the pandemic, right? What we're calling the new normal.
Can you repeat it? Okay, I think it's a great question. The first one that I see is that, we talked about skills, we talked about but ability to work remotely and skills. You could speak a little louder, please. Is it better now? Yes. Yes. Okay. I think it's a great question. So what I was saying,
Sorry.
no problem. Before pandemic, I think we all had most of our face-to-face conversations and get work. With the remote working as a one single skill that came out together, your ability to still be same amount of productivity, same amount of impact that you can make, still being remote, right? That was the first one. Everybody started doing that. That's number one. Number two, from a skill gap perspective, I sort of look at it in a more of a core of the satellite. Core is being whatever skills somebody is doing, right? Accounting, coding, or let's say managing as a skill. And the satellite skill being ability to understand other person, being empathetic to them, understanding the situation that they're going through at home, and still trying to do their jobs better. That's something. I think that's the differentiation that I see, which is a large change after pandemic.
Thank you. And as Mr. Srinivas was saying, we did not have the pleasure of remote working. We being from the essential services, the entire workforce was working on grounds. And the biggest change which I felt during the pandemic was developing my workforce to give the doorstep services. Especially in the rural areas where people were not stepping out of the houses, but the services, they needed money, they needed services, they had to remit funds to the children who were studying in different places. And that was a time when our organization, in fact the bankers came into the field and we went to the doorstep. So just to give a little perspective on what we are doing is, my workforce is my postmen. So we have a big workforce of 300,000 postmen working on ground, which are normal postmen and the rural postmen. They are known as Gramin Dak Sevaks, who are in the remotest corner of the country, and to serve the last mile during the pandemic, the workforce was on their foot all the time,
reaching out to their doorstep and giving their services. That was the biggest change which I felt was at that during the pandemic. That people, and especially for my senior citizens who are drawing pensions, had to, in general, have to come out and give a life certificate during the once a year to draw the pension. And this facility also, we ensured that that was being given to them at the doorstep. That is called a digital life certificate, where a postman can go to your house, take your biometric, and the pension is the life certificate is generated and the pension is. So there was no need for people to go out of the houses, and that is now also being prepared, even when the pandemic has gone down a little, but still we are doing it.
Rohit, before you begin, from an Accenture perspective, right? I wanted to say, when we're talking about the talent marketplace, there's normally, we ask the question, is it an employer-driven marketplace? As in, there's a surplus of talent. Or is it an employee-driven marketplace? What are you seeing? Post the pandemic, would you say it's employer-driven or employee-driven?
To me, I think it's been an employee-driven market and not an employer-driven market. See, employers today or talent outside are spoiled by choices. At the same time, and there's also post-pandemic pressure that realizes that talent today are reevaluating their priorities. They are reevaluating what exactly they expect from the future employer. They're very clear. When we analyze the social footprints, social media channel, and understand talent priorities, they want to join the organization which significantly invests in learning, reskilling, and upskilling. Okay. And that's what happened also in the pandemic time for us was that DNA of us significantly get challenged because the scale at which we hire, we have to ensure that the investment in learning, which is foundation and functional learning, to make the talent more productive, make them industry relevant, should not get impacted. So that's an area where pandemic did impact us. Second area was a lot of young talent who join organization. It's very important then to connect them to organization fabric and organization culture. Okay. That's the second area where we realize that our people need to be more human. They need to be, I think, more, I would say, into their day-to-day conversation with their team members, need to pay more time and efforts to not only train but ensure that the talent is engaged, talent is learning, talent is understanding the career aspiration. To coming to your first point, yes, it is always an employee market. Uh, Candidates are more thoughtful in choosing organizations which not only provide them the good learning, but also an organization which is more modern in terms of the workplace. Organization which focus both on both physical and digital amalgamation at the workplace. Employees are also very particular in choosing organization. They look at organization where their people lead, their managers are the ones who are their coach, mentors, and provide them continuous learning. So it's always been an employee market in my view. And today's candidates and employees are very particular about which organization they want to go to.
Thank you, Rohit. Right, this is something we've seen as a consistent trend. I've attended multiple conferences over the last 6 months. Clearly, it's an employee-driven market. There's massive attrition happening. Most of you would have heard of McKinsey's report called the Great Resignation. Right? Through the pandemic, we've seen that people's priorities have changed. They started looking at life more holistically. They're not looking at life centered around work. Right? They're looking for employers who are investing in them, both professionally, personally. Right? So that's definitely happening. There's a huge transition and massive resignation. Okay. So if I had a takeaway from some of the answers you gave us, clearly skills, remote working skills is one key new thing. Right? Empathy for our colleagues and the people we work with. Right? Looking at employers looking at investing in significant learning and development of their employees, becoming another key requirement. Okay. So, given this shift, what sort of changes are you seeing as an organization? What you are doing to respond to what you are seeing for candidates, for people to hire?
So, so there are two things here. So as Rohit said, it's an employee market space. And since post-pandemic, people started looking at more life plus work than life around work. Right? So we started looking at things specifically around how do you give enough time for employees to do things which is very very important and solve in delivering things on the forefront. So there are a couple of things, right? One, returning women employees and give them a second career is one of the largest issues trying to drive them. So because during pandemic and after that, obviously there are certain things that women want to come back to work. How do you live? Right? That's one. Number two, at a critical level, there are systemic changes that we are putting together in the organization. For example, we insist that no meeting is more than 25 minutes. So between meetings, you meet the 30 minutes start. You have 25-minute meeting, 5 minutes you take a break. You go to, let's say, a bio break, pick up a water, check on, let's say, an elderly friend, come back, types of things. So they're all systematically inculcated from the leadership to make sure people don't spend extended hours on that. Right? That's the second part. That's for the existing employees who sort of working with us. The new set of models that we are looking at is how is the gig economy as an employee that's coming in together? Somebody has to be a full-time working with an organization and delivery. If somebody wants to do a part-time, let's say 4 hours a day work and 4 hours they want to live at home, is that model sort of possible? We sort of look at because there's always this employee-driven market and they dictate how they want to work. But is the organizations ready to look at that sort of a model to say, gig economy, I'm going to get somebody for let's say a specific number of hours in a month or a week to work with them, or a given project level, and how much of our organizations are ready to look at it is also an interesting point.
Thank you. So I heard multiple points there, right? You're saying we are responding by looking at the work-life angle, right? Bringing women back for sure, looking at work-life balance theme. This is also tying in with, as part of my employer brand consulting, we consistently do surveys of students as well as sort of developers, right? Consistently, soon after the pandemic, within 6 months, 10 months, within multiple surveys, the number one requirement for developers and students from a culture perspective is that they're expecting and wanting more work-life balance. This is the number one, right on top. Followed by job security, right? And this was not the case, pre-pandemic for sure. Okay.
So coming back to what you were asking is the shift. So coming from a traditional banking environment, the biggest shift was to convert and educate and train my people from shifting from a traditional banking products to digital banking products. So that needed a lot of effort in training them. So as I told, the workforce is the postman who has been doing delivering dark or maybe the parcels for ages and centuries. But our challenge was to shift them from a postman to a banker. A banker means a lot of compliances from the regulators and educating them on the regulations also and also on the compliances. So that was the biggest challenge which we faced, and especially for the digital products, we had to train them. So it is extremely difficult to give them classroom trainings at that time. So what we did was we on their mobile phones we had learning management systems. So all 300,000 people had could access those learning management systems. The content was being uploaded, and again the target audience was not the ones where we could give them PPTs and that they would understand the technical language. So the simplification of the content of training was a big challenge. So how to simplify the training content, how to make them understand the processes, the compliances part, along with the risks involved. So that was a big shift which we had from the way to be trained our people. So that was that.
Wow, really impressive, Seema. So you got postmen to learn digital skills
Yes.
during the pandemic.
Yes. No, yes, it started a little before, but during the pandemic, we had to instill a lot of morale boosting tactics. Also, this is the challenge nation is facing. And when they were connected with us, it was a nation building project. So we had to, boost their morale by saying, you were part, you are the front line people who are working, serving the country at that time. So that was one challenge.
That's an interesting point Seema is making as a principle of education, right? Because we need to inspire people, right? There is this wonderful quote, I don't know how many of you have heard it, I may not quote it exactly, but a French author called Antoine Saint-Exupéry, right? I won't give you the exact quote, but the essence of what he said was is that if you want to teach people to build ships, don't teach them how to hammer nails and cut wood. Teach them a love for the sea, right? And then they will figure it out. They will figure out how to build ships, right? And it looks like you did that by giving them pride in what they were doing for the nation.
Right. Talking about 2 points, great resignation and work-life balance. I think one thing which I have seen industry reacting on the great resignation piece is that the rigidity which organizations had in terms of once a year promotion, once a year increment, they challenge the rigidity now, right? Post-pandemic, I realized that to retain talent right now, organizations were doing more frequent promotions, they were doing more frequent pay hikes, they were offering candidates more frequent retention bonuses. They were also offering lot of frequent, what we call this sign-on bonuses, faster promotion, faster progression. That's what happening currently. I think to me these are definitely a more of a short-term measures to retain talent because they are cash component heavy. I think the long-term investment these companies are doing right now is that ensuring that they are making their employee value proposition much more visible in the marketplace, so that talent not only relate to the culture of their workplace. And today, what has happened? The second point, post-pandemic era has happened is that talent was watching in terms of how organizations reacted to the pandemic and the kind of support they provide to the employees during pandemic. Those are becoming an additional factor while choosing your next employer. Okay. So we are also ensuring that when we go and talk about employee value proposition, we talk about how do we really take care of well-being of employees, and even well-being is now part of the total reward strategy, like foundation investing in well-being. I think that is one thing where different changes happen in the industry. Second point in terms of work-life balance, which you mentioned earlier. See, organizations are not asking employees to come and work. There are different sentiments in the market right now where organizations have adjusted now to the more hybrid way of working. You can work anywhere, anytime. For example, at Accenture, we were operating, I would say not only Accenture, the industry talent was concentrated in those metro cities of NCR, Mumbai, Chennai, Bangalore, Hyderabad. And post-pandemic, talent have moved to tier 3 cities and both those their social talent. Okay. So, to retain top talent, to retain the talent across skill set, organizations are saying that be there where you are. Okay. What we will ensure that we create or we design the work element in a way around your ecosystem so that you feel productive, you at the same time remain healthy, at the same time we ensure that whether it is learning or it is support is provided from where you are. And we'll ensure that we unleash your potential irrespective of whatever the things you are operating from. So I think the workplace is now is at home and the ecosystem is now more around where people are. So these are the two changes which are happening now to retain talent.
That's great. So it sounds like a good shift that's been happening since the pandemic, right? The first point that you mentioned about, it sounds like employees are asking, does this organization really care about me? Right? Do you care about me as a person? And this is interesting to me because I follow I don't know if you've heard about Gallup. Gallup is a worldwide organization, right? And they specialize in checking on employee happiness levels, what is of course in HR parlance called employee engagement. They have a simple 12-question survey to gauge how happy employees in your organization are. So that Accenture follows that. One of the key points, or one of the 12 questions that Gallup asks an employee to know whether he or she is happy is, does someone at work care about you? And this has been research that has been there for 22 years. Okay? here clearly employers need to work on their employer value proposition from a care perspective. Right? Good point there. And remote talent, right? This is opening up the marketplace so much to talent that was completely untapped, so often actually neglected across all the tier 2, tier 3 cities, maybe even villages in India. So that's a great opportunity, I think, for both talent as well as this company.
I think this pandemic has also created a new, I would say, talent market. Earlier, employers used to look at only the metro cities to search for talent, and now tier 2, tier 3 cities are the new talent marketplace for us. So not only we have Accenture, we have opened up the new centers in Coimbatore, in Indore, and recently in Jaipur. And now we are looking at tapping local talent here. And the talent was relatively less defined, but now they are more interested to work with organizations because their hubs being created in this location where the talent is. So I think this digital talent problem which industry is also facing, solution to that to some extent is give the market where talent is and let them work from anywhere.
Yeah, a shift in mindset for employers, a great opportunity for everyone in tier 2, tier 3 cities. Okay, next question. If you had just one piece of key advice to give to a student today, based on all these changes that you're seeing in the talent marketplace, what would that be?
I have two daughters and I tell them the same thing. So both of them are married. So one of them is, be flexible. Right? That's the thing. So don't cast your vision on stone and expect that to be delivered, because to reach them, so for example, the example that I tell them is when I was a kid, the most fascinating thing, that job that I wanted to do was the bus driver. Because when I got in there, the bus was so huge and this one car was able to move it around and everybody's also that's why I was just looking at the bus driver. So my biggest motivation is to become a bus driver. But when we grew up, we know what it was. Right? So that was not about this job that I did. Right? So I sort of tell them the same thing. So you don't know what is the tomorrow job. 5 years ago, did I see a job role called a drone driver? I didn't see it. Right? Today, it's one of the core skills that is needed on the market. Right? So which means the sort of talent and the courses that you're doing today will probably land you on a corporate ladder. But from the corporate ladder, the moment you step in, where you will go, you just don't know. It depends on the market, it depends on the business models, it depends on what is being needed on the micro market or a larger market, how companies are going to define what new roles will come. You might even touching the tip of an iceberg from the new talent and the new requirements perspective. So being open, being humble, and ready to change, and the 3 R's that one of the R's was right? I think that's the most important thing. So when you're ready to learn and ready to change, I think things will progress.
You said 2 things. What is the second one?
So the first one is being, open and humble to change, right? Second thing, don't be very, don't be very, hold on to things saying, this is how it should be.
Flexible. Yeah, completely flexible.
It's more important.
Constantly flexible and adaptable.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So the one thing which I would like to tell all the youngsters who come to a new organization is don't expect quick returns. So the children and the kids and the youngsters are very impatient these days. They want everything, because on the click of the button they see everything on the computer and they expect the same in their lives also. So that's one lesson which I wanted to give.
Impatience to be avoided, patience to be cultivated.
Patience to be done.
I'd like to share 2 things here. It's very important which I did talk to this guy who for campus life. I think first is that we always be very agile and nimble learner. Learning is continuous at all stages of life for us. What I usually go and talk to talent is that if you have only one skill, that skill will not feed you for life. It's very important that you constantly evaluate is that am I relevant? Have I acquired the skill which keeps me relevant in the current time? If you have relevant skills, you will be able to bring it to your advantage even in terms of the career. It's very important that we focus on continuous learning. That is one thing which I talk about. Second very important advice that we give students is around is that focus on your data literacy skills. Because the way the social media footprints are left today and the way electricity is left for pandemic is that we need to constantly evaluate is that how we can leverage data more intelligently to understand and appreciate the problem at the end of our client and customers and how we can develop more intelligent solutions leveraging data insight. And third thing which I share with you is that your career progression and your career growth is not only the responsibility of an organization. You have equal role to play in terms of the career growth. And it's very important that you seek consistent feedback about how are you experiencing in your organization. At the same time, ensure that you identify resources in the organization to help you grow. So take my ownership and seek consistent feedback about how I have been experienced. These are the three pieces of advice that I give to students.
Great, Rohit. So learning to learn, right? Have the ability to learn. Be a constant lifelong learner, right? Students shouldn't think learning stops when they finish their eighth semester or master's degree. Okay, that's one. Then the second one, data literacy. Okay.
Take ownership of your own career.
This I've heard from multiple people, right? And clearly, in my corporate career in IBM, there were many candidates that would think that their career was their manager's responsibility, right? So, you don't go to your manager, sit and complain and just say, what's happening, I'm not getting my promotion. Your career is your responsibility, isn't it? Okay? That's so, the last question for our panel today is, what are organizations doing to develop these kinds of skills, right? What should they are making? What new things? What are you doing differently to help people reskill or adapt?
Yeah. So just about two, three things. As we heard also in the beginning from Deep and Keith and also Manish around this gap which have right now what industry need and what students have. What we initially focus a lot, if we talk about young talent, is to build their foundational skills and the functional knowledge. So the initial 3 to 6 months is an integrated learning with a connected classroom where you are not only connecting with your trainer real time and you're also seeking real time feedback from your own cohorts. So there's significant investment in the initial few months to build your strong foundation and understand the functional aspect of the role. That is one thing which we are doing a lot. Second thing which we talked about is that significant focus on reskilling and upskilling. Okay. We look at the skill repository of each and every talent in the organization and look at which are those skills where we need to, or we call about the skills which are right now need more in demand and how you need to upgrade your skills to more relevant skills pertaining to the various work which we do for our clients. It is very important that we continuously focus on reskilling our employees, and this is a significant investment which happens in reskilling to get them ready for the relevant role. I think that is the second very important thing we are doing currently in terms of skill development.
So I could ask, Rohit, when you say foundational skills, what would be an example of a foundational skill?
So foundational skills will be primarily around your all the technology fundamentals, what you read. The foundation skills also include is the communication skills, and communication skills is good for written communication skills and verbal communication skills. And that's the one thing which we realize is a gap between the what students learn in the academic curriculum and what industry needs is when you interact with your client, it's very important that you are able to understand and articulate the client requirement into a very usable user document. It's very important that you have good communication skills to understand client needs. So communication skill is also part of foundation skills. So foundation skill is basically is to bring all the hires at one platform in terms of fundamental knowledge of technology and fundamental requirement in terms of communication.
So soft skills are also a very key component even for a technology-heavy company like Accenture. Okay.
So mine was a startup bank. So people from across the industry came from different banks, private, public, everywhere. So what we did was we created a pool of people, or in fact, we created a portal where people came up with best practices followed in their respective organizations. And those things were, we tried to imbibe them in our organization. And if there was a skilling session to be taken for any particular skill, we invited our own people, and on live streaming, YouTube live streaming, or maybe internal portals, we trained them on those practices. So that having a pool of people from different organizations was a big benefit also. But they also had a hindsight of it that they came from a structured organization, they had everything in place, and there were sometimes grievances on things not happening as it was happening in their previous places. So that again we had a Nivaran portal, and then people would put their grievances, and from within the team only people would give a lot of solutions. So that is one thing which we did at that time.
Very nice. So you tapped into the collective wisdom from multiple organizations. Wonderful.
So just there's a significant amount of increase in the L&D learning and development, and there are clear roadmaps that we have created for every job in terms of various somebody wants to do. For example, an SD, a software development engineer to whatever career they want to do, or a marketing to whatever career they want to do, things like that. Then we also created this swing model where individual contributor to a manager to individual contributor. How does the parallel smooth shifting that's happening? And when you are at an individual contributor level, you have a core which is specific technical skills that you develop, and also as Ravi said, soft skills, empathy, understanding people, so on and so forth. Managing people, managing difficult things, and managing difficulty because the difficulty that they're going through is something related to whatever circumstances that they're going through, right? So I think that empathy-based managing, empathy-based delivery, empathy-based collaboration is a framework that's really is drawn to. The second other important thing that we want to do is we want to make sure people start appreciating things in and around them, which means the life that they live on, the yoga, meditation, work that they want to do. How do we extend that using the public sponsorship so that they can have access to a health club, access to a yoga class, access to meditation? There are a bunch of these apps that we introduce. There's a meditation app someone wants to do. There's a corporate membership available. You go learn, start practicing, and every one of the activities that they do, they have an opportunity to come and record, and we run an internal gamification contest to see who's doing that one what active. For example, somebody wants to learn running. There is a running club available to people. So the appreciating part of life is the other thing, because the moment you start becoming empathetic and more oriented towards life, then your delivery that comes out of on the product side of it that you're expecting is far more better. And there is no strong connection that gets built within the brand, and the ability to live is much lesser. So it's one of the talent retention strategies that we support.
Great. Appreciation and gratitude, instilling that into your team. That was a unique one. I didn't expect that. And then, of course, you touched upon competencies, much like the previous panel spoke about, roadmaps, competencies, goals, all of that, right? Okay. Okay. We're out of time, I see that.
Yeah.
Okay. Any one last burning thing somebody wanted to share, which I didn't let you share, or you wanted to share with the audience, if I didn't let you share?
The only thing is, as I said, tomorrow's world is, we just don't know what it's going to be, depending on where the winds will be and how the ships will steer. All we need to do is just keep grounded, keep willing to change. I think those are the two things I would say. Yeah, just expect unexpected.
Okay. Be adaptable, flexible, keep learning. Okay.
To this wonderful session, we request you to kindly stay back as we move ahead and invite on stage Mr. Supriyo Chaudhary, President, Digital Commonwealth, to please join us on the dais to give the award of thought leadership. तालियां थोड़ी जोरदार होनी चाहिए. Ladies and gentlemen, big round of applause for our esteemed. Mr. Rohit Jha awards for our esteemed dignitaries on the dais. time. Thank you, sir. Thank you for moderating it. Thank you.
Giving this opportunity to me, especially for this panel discussion. Although it's a very interesting job, but today is a very difficult job. The reason is very simple. Each panelist himself, herself is an institution. They have experience not for 1 or 2 decades, around 5 decades. I am really grateful to Manish ji, Puyo as well as Das Gupta, all my great friends. They could make me to be aware here today to meet my all senior associates with whom we have worked a lot for the different capacities through the ministry. So, today it is the third panel discussion, and you could see from since morning the topic of the discussion is all around the student-centric. So we should be clear about this motto that we have to make our youngsters, our learners to reach their goal, their destiny with the same kind of passion as they start their schooling. So that passion should not be missed somewhere. So institutional transformation for the industry 4.0, talent landscape. When we talk about the talent, it directly connects to the heart of the human being, because we learn technology. But how to learn technology, how to learn skills, that is the individual's inherent properties called talent. We call it as shortcuts to learning or something different. And same thing is industry is now looking multi-talented people for a one particular position to have the multitasking in industry. A person sitting next to me here is well-known personality for Delhi as well as for the country, because this is the unique today's conference. You generally see when the 3 speakers comes from the outside India, we call it as an international conference, but we still make it as India conference. The word is not international word over there, although the great speakers from Australia, but they are in this side as well as from that side. And you could see in the conferences, generally we could find either academic leaders or sometimes faculty. But today you are going to witness the bureaucrats, academic leaders, and of course our foreign friends from the academia, and not the last, not the least, the most important, the students also you are going to be find on the same floor, same place, because we have to hear them, but exactly they are looking from us. Always it is a one-way traffic. We speak out, being a teacher, we never thought of what they are looking for. So my first question comes to this panel, and I would like to ask to Bansal sir only, how do institutions adopt? Why I am asking? Because he is a running institution from last 3 to 4 decades in Delhi itself, and he is catering not only the one stream students, because all stream students come to his institution for the management to meet the new and emerging opportunities. So please, my first question is to
Thank you, Mananji, for giving this great opportunity, and thank you, the organizers sitting in this elite panel. In fact, I would go back home with a lot of learning today, so thank you so much, everybody. I would say first of all, the mindset of the teacher, the mindset of the director or the principal or the management has to be open. I've been a part of the bureaucracy throughout, and now for the last couple of years I'm taking care of this education institution that's called New Delhi Institute of Management, set up in 92 by my father, who was a member of the UPSC. And very strange to me, I felt that, pardon me, couple of friends, in case I'm more honest or more straight. But I felt that most of the time, academia is lost into what they learned in the last 20, 30 years. Most of the time, they are not very open to see what is going to happen after 20 years. So that is the biggest pain. The moment the teacher realizes the reality of being ready for tomorrow, that's the first step in any organization. And they have to be serious about, they will not be knowing everything at all. Nobody can be knowing everything at all. I'll tell you a very small example. You know, whenever the regulator used to come to us for inspections or accreditations, they had laid down a law that you will change the curriculum after every 3 years. We said, no, we can't wait for 3 years. We are changing curriculum every 6 months. And the regulators never liked it. They said, how can you change every 6 months? You're not required to change. Our mandate is 3 years old. So the problem is, at times, the regulator or the senior academician who has taught for 50 years, their mind is still oriented and fixed into the old way of working. That has to be changed. The same thing has to happen at your families, with the parents. Institutional change will happen if the parent is thinking futuristic and if the teacher is thinking futuristic. That happens, obviously the academia will gradually flow along with that. So that's why I'll not take more time, so there's only other speakers.
Well said, sir. It's a well-known fact that from last many years, any government policy document draft comes, it is partial until unless the Professor Sharma have penned in it. Sir, it is a well-known fact that you are always the member of the core committees, either from AICT perspective or UGC perspective. That's what I just want to understand, sir. What kind of wisdom you could see in the government policies when we talk about the meet the new emerging opportunities and especially touching NEP 20? Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Manna. First of all, let me thank the organizers for the opportunity given to us to share with you our perceptions as well as our vision for today as well as tomorrow. My mind goes back to 1984, when India imported computers from UK. I was on sabbatical from IIT Delhi as a professor at the University of Birmingham, and at that time the newspapers thought India must spend more money on bread rather than on computers. They even ridiculed the idea of computer literacy that was being created by the government at that time. Rajiv Gandhi, the architect of New India at that time, was very clear that computers will create more bread, more butter, massive layers of employment, and will bring tremendous amount of prosperity for India. I brought back to the newspaper a letter to editor saying that you do not know India, at least you know about New India, and let you and I live together to see the day when computer literacy will transform India into one of the most vibrant economies of the world. Ladies and gentlemen, we are meeting today at a time when the digital transformation has made Mother India truly proud, starting from 1980. But having said this, I'm an old timer, therefore my mind went straight to 84. Looking at today, the institutional transformation is a reality. It's happening today, Dr. Manna. I'm sure you are aware about it, Dr. Bansal is aware about it, Dr. Bora, Dr. Rama, we all are quite aware about it. And this transformation is taking place primarily because of two reasons. Firstly, we are very conscious that we are here in the business of not only meeting the needs of today, but also preparing the workforce for tomorrow's industry. Industry 4.0 is something which is switching all across the globe. No doubt India will march, in my opinion, with competence and confidence in this area. Having said that, let me say that there are, rather than challenge of the skill gap, we have a great opportunity, in my opinion, in our universities and institutions in India. I know for certain that digital transformation requires much of the self-learning rather than tutoring and mentoring. And therefore, India is in a position of advantage because self-learning and learning by doing, that is something I practiced at Delhi College of Engineering and IIT, took it to Delhi Technological University and now at MIT University. I know that the younger generation is jumping on their feet to participate in the digital transformation and making our institutional transformation, not only to take the challenge of Industry 4.0 today, but also to see how the application of the new technology emerging from Industry 4.0 to create millions and millions of jobs in sectors which are otherwise not talked about for Industry 4.0. Beyond manufacturing, just think of artificial intelligence, machine learning, data analytics, driving tomorrow's businesses and commerce. Driving tomorrow our new area and domains of activity in agriculture, engineering and food technology sector. Think about new areas emerging from the application of data analytics, artificial intelligence and machine learning in variety of other endeavors in which India is currently engaged, including the new commitment that the government of India has made for the Ministry of Defence, for Atmanirbharta in the defence sector, even making India a country to export very many high technology defence equipments and implements, and also think of India tomorrow venturing into semiconductor industry. India would be in great better. So in our universities, including MIT University, where I am currently the Vice Chancellor, and I know that my Vice Chancellor colleagues sitting here, we all are putting our best foot forward, not only to excite the imagination and inspire the young community, but to participate with them for the institutional transformation that will take on board, taking the computer literacy to the most modern and most advanced area of digital technology. But Dr. Mana, there are new challenges confronting the whole world at the moment. You all know about data security, you all understand the implications which are involved about misuse of technology at the moment that's happening on social media. But let me tell you that we are seriously engaged in looking at how technology of conscience can be created tomorrow. So that what really otherwise people thought that conscience is only the monopoly of human beings and creatures. This is my opinion, would be also there embedded into the machines, mechanisms, systems and devices of tomorrow. And therefore I think we need to work with the whole of the world today to transplant the idea that the technology that we develop must also, we must start thinking how ethics and professional morality can be brought into the robotics, can be brought into the new layers of machine learning. How could this be extended to the virtual reality and also a whole lot of artificial intelligence and augmented world that we are going to create. And therefore technology of conscience are also a new area. In our own university we are exciting the imagination of the young as well as old. And I am very happy that even teachers are participating in digital transformation with the mindset of the kind of Dr. Manson has so rightly inspired. People like me always believe give the student the kind of freedom that is required so that learning by doing becomes a reality, and then walk with them, mentor them, take them to the frontier if they need to visit today and create for tomorrow. Ladies and gentlemen, we are in good times today, I can tell you, as far as India is concerned, our universities and institutions are all taking this challenge seriously and translating this challenge into new opportunity in our institutions and universities. I wish to give you this hope. I will return back to you.
Sure, sir. I will back to you. Definitely, we have to have a lot many things from you. Yes, whenever the opportunity comes, the challenge automatically follows. We talk about the digital literacy and what about the data security. This is what he said. And why this kind of words coming from themselves? Just remember, the great panelists sitting over here, they have the experience of the Lantern till LED. Starting their career from the Belgadi to bullet train. The biggest transformation generation I can say in India is the same generation which we have learned a lot from them, from their experience. Dr. Niharika ji, when we already accepted this real truth by Indians that we are more flexible in this world. That's what we could started our career from, Lantern, and we could reach to LED. And all this kind of innovations happened in our country with the great support from our Shastras and Granthas. You are not only skilling the students as well as the managers. What you think what is the gap and how it can be filled by the institutions, because industry is 4.0, but my education is 2.0. So how this gap can be filled with the help of the skilling?
You've raised a very important question that we're possibly stuck in different realities in different worlds. Maybe our students are ready at some level to jump into the industry 4.0 because that's where they were the natives of. Is the university ready? We have questions on it. And I think that is why universities like ours, like the Skill and Entrepreneurship University, become relevant, or an Applied Science University becomes relevant, because in a way that's where we're asking the question, what is the use of teaching something or imparting the student something that possibly was relevant 12 years ago or 15 years ago? And maybe that's even a very long. However, I think while this is easy to say, to manage it with the current faculty resources who possibly have kind of fossilized or kind of stayed where they are is a big challenge for any university. It's not just my university or not any university, it's any university. Because at the end of the day, the incentives for the faculty are not aligned to learning and doing something interesting, meaningful, what happens in the industry. But for the student, there is no hope. I think the Future of Work report shows that more than 80,000 roles that exist today will possibly disappear in the next 5 to 7 years. And I don't even know what those 80,000 roles are. And therefore, how am I going to, train the student to think about that becomes a question. So I think the answer is, and that's what we're trying to attempt to look at, is maybe the answer is not to teach state-of-art technology. I think the answer is to teach, as was being said in the previous panel as well, it is learning to learn, to problem solve, to remain agile, to be flexible, to identify a problem and to approach everything as a, how can I solve this problem? I think as long as we are able to inculcate that in the students, or at least keep it alive, I think it's already there, we just kill it. If we can keep their curiosity and their agility and their interests alive in college, I think we would be doing this. So I think we have a very difficult challenge that we are going to do.
You well defined it. Yes, this is what we were talking since morning, the talent cultivation, the adaptability, the flexibility, what the Siva Kumar mentioned, and this is what we are looking for. Professor Rana, you started your career with the core physics. You were the man of the liquid crystal, and today you are talking something about the artificial intelligence in your campus as a Vice Chancellor. How this journey makes you to be say that are we still 21st century institution, or you are looking something beyond that, as you know this journey well? Please.
Thank you, Dr. Manna, and I appreciate I4IC for asking us to be in this panel. This panel is really very, very eminent. You have the blend of people who talk about industry, people who talk about government systems, and everyone who has an experience of around more than 35 years now to be a part of the academics. I would say the journey of academia has always been an evolution, and India is privy to many such changes that have happened over the years. From learning what Dr. Mana said, the liquid crystal, and today you have the panels from flat panel displays going from LCD to OLEDs, the high production displays. I have been witness to many such changes as a student, a person who has worked with corporate and tried to use certain concepts in commercialization to Dr. Mana. The journey has been fantastic, and if I look at my current journey and the current role at MS Ramaya University of Applied Sciences in Bangalore, you will rarely find universities by the name Applied Sciences. I think if you do a search in the Google G, that where is it, you'll find exceptions. That makes me and takes me to a point that we have a technology campus in Bangalore, which used to be one of the Asia's hub of industrialization, that is PDM. And our main campus is just adjoining the Institute of Science. So connecting science to the applied aspect of that has been the thought process behind the promoters when they thought about it. Dr. Mana and the team members, we are changing and we have to change. India Vishwaguru is undoubtedly a great thought and a great concept, but if I don't look for the future, I think I will be always bowed down by Vishwaguru and Vishwaguru. We need to set the timelines. When we say I4IC, I put it like this, I for Industry Connect. That is the abbreviation I was looking at when I was looking at the blackboard. If I don't look at the Industry Connect today, I think I'm not giving best to the students. We always felt that students learn from us, but Industry 4.0 and Education 4.0 are synonymous. It is student-centric. I have also learned from students. In that context, academia, industry, corporate, whether we talk about the digital world or the industry as such, I put industry not only bifurcated to industry, I think there has to be synergy to be involved in designing and developing curriculum, not only for the industry's sake, for engineers. Today, industry needs much more manpower in social science and liberal arts than they need only from the industry perspective as well. This embedding the system, gelling them together, is where the education thought leaders have to sit, discuss and deliberate. At our university, we have already taken initiatives because Karnataka in this country is the first state which have approved the implementation of the new education policy. We at Ramaya University have already started it from 2021. And this year, the last week was deliberations. Across the programs, we are implementing it. And I would like to inform the all audience here, a larger portion of the curriculum is now industry-centric, not only go to the industry, but better hands-on learning. And in this direction, we have also opened opportunities for industry, corporate people to become a part of learning system in the universities. So in laboratory of the storm, the Prayogshala has not only been industry, it has to be academia too. This synergizing industry and academia, I see as the future of our nation. And we should not look only at India. I think as a global community, we have great challenges, I am sure. We, at the cusp of making a change happen, we are there. And last week, at Varanasi, we had a Mahakumbh, 3 days discussion deliberation. In my memory, it is for the first time I have seen the Union Education Minister and the Governor of the state being there for all 3 days discussing and deliberating the impact of education and that too for the future generation. I see a great hope, a great scope, great opportunities, great challenges, but I think it is we got to make it a great happen. Thank you, Dr. Mana.
Well submission from the Silicon Valley of country, India, when you are saying this, it is going to be implementable to the tier 2, tier 3 level. I just going to make this session the last question throwing to all of you and expecting a very honest reply on this because you all are heading the institutions not only to the one level, to the different level of my country as well as abroad. Professor Bansal, when we started our career as a teacher, we learned something in our education and we reached to our campus. There was a very big difference. I learned GW Basic, I was teaching a Pascal. But to the moment any student is coming out, by the time he becomes a professor or a teacher, he has to go through with the transformation through the masters and PhD. Earlier it was not the scenario. Do you expect the same faculty deliver to the today's aspiring minds what exactly they are looking for Industry 4.0 or edutech companies can complement to the institutions or vice versa? Very honest answer, I know.
I've been very honest, I always said so. That faculty most of the time is not fully geared up or prepared because what they study, those books which are yesterday's books. They may have done a lot of additional learning with them, but they are not prepared for the future. You know, when we talk to the teachers and they tell us that what we taught in engineering now is also being taught in 8th or 9th class in the schools. Okay, so there's a big change, and the only way is, for every small thing, we should not be depending upon the faculty. Okay, faculty at times becomes insecure. I have been telling them, be very honest, you say that I can't do it, get a person from industry to do it. It could be 10-hour module, it could be full course. You also sit along with the students study. Because faculty has to groom itself, and we have to fill this gap of learning, and the learning gap can only be filled by the industry, by the specialists. We are specialists of every group, every age, and now since online learning has become so very convenient, people earlier were not used to this kind of a learning. We always have a lot of online experts who fill up this gap. That's the only way to move forward. We have to be very straight, we have to be very honest, otherwise we'll keep on giving education which is yesterday's. And Dr. Madam, this is not happening only in our country. My colleagues will agree with me because I had a lot of interaction recently with the British universities and with US, Australian, Canadian universities. Faculty there is also yesterday's faculty. So I would not like to say more than that.
Thank you, sir. Very, very well said. And quickly, sir, I need your response because you have a very huge experience for this.
I have to be honest enough.
Yes, precisely.
Also, the word of learning is changing. No longer a teacher can say that I am here to teach you. You have to go to the class and say, I am here to learn with you. And you must learn together with the students. Way back in almost 10 years ago, when I said this in Delhi Technological University, the teachers must learn together with the students. सारे टीचर मेरे से लड़ने आ गए, कहते हैं जी लोग क्या जमाना आया है, हमें स्टूडेंट से सीखना पड़ेगा, हम उनको पढ़ाने के लिए आए. I said, look, the times ahead will teach you that unless you learn together with your students and treat students also as teachers. In fact, even as a vice chancellor, many times I find that the students teach me. I brought with me a young man sitting in front of me, Simal Tiwari. Tiwari was in first year of BSc, and he was talking like more than a PhD scholar. I learned a lot from him about environmental science and the new technology that are required. Yesterday in my office, he along with the professors of IIT, we were discussing how to apply artificial intelligence and machine learning to a whole lot of data that we are monitoring in our city of Delhi and NCR and translate that data into a new knowledge by which we would be able to predict ahead in advance what's going to happen in Delhi, say on 15th of August and so on, in terms of pollution. So this is where I think the learning together, that's first one. The second honest answer is that whether you know it or not, I want to keep the skill gap with the industry open. It's written here, closing the skill gap. I really do not want to close the skill gap, otherwise we will go back to what it was in 1960s and 70s. I want to keep this skill gap open because universities are supposed to be the places from where the lifeline of the industry is to be drawn in terms of new technology, in terms of new knowledge, in terms of new skills that we create to create the better tomorrow. And therefore, this skill gap needs to be enhanced, in my opinion, by university, industry, and the younger mind working together, creating futuristic technology so that the future of work can be transformed. Let me finish by saying that I am in a position of advantage. I wrote a paper on India's third industrial revolution. Now you are already in Industry 4.0. So I said, all right, if you don't talk about third industrial revolution, I would rather focus on Indian university education 5.0. Because to serve the cause of 4.0, I need to be ahead of the industry in terms of putting together my whole agenda of education, research and innovation to think of industry 5.0 to serve the industry 4.0 today and 5.0 tomorrow. That's why I talked about technology of conscience and the new layers which we need to create. So I think we are in a good position. Let me also say and submit to you honestly, there is no skill in the world today that can be called a generic skill. Every single skill which you require today to drive the agenda of the industry of today and that of tomorrow, in my opinion, is knowledge-based and knowledge-intensive, technology-integrated skill. And therefore, in our whole idea of skill development, have to change now. If we have to create India of our dream, we must acknowledge that the entire effort that we invest in ITI, Polytechnic, or even in skill development institute or university, it's here the knowledge and skill.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. So today's institutions for the tomorrow's industry, this is what he wants to say. The today's institution should be teach what the tomorrow's industry need. So education 5.0 should align to the 4.0, not for this. Because that reskilling, please for the two lines. Unskilling and reskilling. That's why.
I don't think you ever unskill. I think you reskill and you upskill. You
Absolutely.
never lose a skill.
Yeah.
You learn.
Lifetime achievement once you are going to achieve something in your skills, not for the education. Yeah, Professor Rana, 21st century institution, how you are looking?
Nalanda and Takshila tomorrow are going to be different. Let people come and learn from us again, which is also going to relearn what my colleague Dr. Niharika said. I'm sure it's going to happen. Thank you.
That's the true recommendations came from this panel discussion, that we should be aligned not to the same pace, rather one step ahead to the industry's thought. Then only we can create the industry leaders from the educational institutions of my country. India, 900 plus universities still could not give the GER. More than 30%, we are looking for 50%. Do you think that we are going to be adding the 900 more universities? No. That's why the government of India said we are talking about the digital universities. The tomorrow's education is the digital universities, but make sure the data security, make sure the reskilling, and of course, make sure this is what we are looking for. Thank you very much for this wonderful discussion. Thank you. Over to you.
Just one sentence that Mana I want to say. 21st century promises you, and I and you should live together to see this promise in reality, to create a world free from unemployment. In fact, it can create a world of zero unemployment. And it can also create a world where happiness and prosperity would be together, not just prosperity and unhappiness of the kind that we are facing. We have to work for it, and education and educational transformation at all levels from schools to the university is the answer. It cannot be delivered alone, it has to be delivered in partnership with the industry, partnership with the government and the society together. With this hope, I think we need to pursue the project message 2.0 and beyond.
Same principle, I, industry institution interaction has to be lived. It is not the old slogan, it is going to be a slogan for the next many years. This is what he said. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much to all of you.
Thank you so much, sir, for adding. Once again, a huge round of applause, everyone, as we thank our esteemed guests who joined us here today to share their thoughts, views, and ideas with all of us. Dr. Niharika Bhunga. Dr. Kuldeep Raina. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, a huge round of applause. We thank our eminent panel. Last but not the least, a lot of ideas, a lot of thoughts, a lot of thinking going into the session. Thank you, Dr. Mana, for on Twitter. We're waiting for a few more tweets from all of us, from all of our guests. There are smartphones and smart watches.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this afternoon session. And I think fully fitting that when we began the day, we talked about the all-important factor of employability, which today presents one of the biggest challenges to the Indian economy. And now, as we began the day by discussing the digital skills gap that exists and how we can bridge it, in this session, we hope to talk about the campus to career transition that students undertake, and that is such an important phase of their life, something that really, in a sense, lays the roadmap for their future. And we have a terrific panel here. All the guests have already been introduced. So without further ado, let me just start this panel discussion. And I would like to start with Supriyo Chaudhary first. Supriyo, correct me if I'm wrong, but I came across an article recently written by you where you made some very interesting points about the subject that we are hoping to discuss in this panel discussion, the campus to career transition. And you said, as first generation migrants in a new country, the students we were dealing with had a wide range of concerns. Settling down, finding part-time jobs, finding a more secure visa, engaging with their respective ethnic networks, for support system and to complete their course of study quickly to start earning. Whether they were prepared for professional jobs with the right kind of capabilities is a priority for us, but this may not feature as a top priority for students concerned. Therefore, tell us, when a student does make that transition from campus to embarking on their career, what do you think are some of the biggest challenges that they face, and how should educational institutions address these challenges?
Thank you, Neha. So I'll first put a context on that quote. So the context of that quote was the question we were asking ourselves, saying that when we prepare for employability and all that stuff, there is a third participant in the room. We talk about companies doing it, we talk about institutions doing it, and we often forget the students. And we wanted to bring the students into the conversation. We wanted to understand what motivates them in engaging with this. Now, we have all been first year students. We didn't think about jobs that much in the first year. Second year, we started thinking about it. Third year, we panicked. So we have all gone. So that's what we were going out. My colleagues were kind of actually setting up centers, talking to students, trying to understand what motivates them. And also the particular context was international students going in and facing massive challenges in different countries. Cultural adaptation, understanding the job market, facing discrimination in some cases, and all that. So the context is slightly different based on job markets. Context in international education often are all those plus the campus to career transition. That was the point I was trying to make. Now, if we come back to just the campus to career transition, that part of it, we have spoken to hundreds of students right now, and I think there are the key challenges are the nature of knowledge. What constitutes knowledge, which Professor Sharma was just talking about it. What constitutes knowledge today? Is it contained in a textbook? Does the teacher know it? Those kind of things, and sometimes the students are understanding that they know more of this digital world than their teachers, and how you adjust to that. And also, there is this opportunity and aspiration gap because it's set by your labor market, and some of those are non-skill factors. Some of those are, so I kind of heard the story from Shashi Tharoor, who was the Deputy Director General at that point in time. So Shashi walks in the airport and somebody recognizes him and stops him, and he's like, "Can I do something?" And this elderly gentleman tells him, "Can you fix my laptop? Because you are Indian, right? So you have those kind of things you deal with as well." So it's those non-market factors as well which confronts the students at that stage.
Absolutely, plenty of challenges that need to be addressed jointly by the students and the academia, and then of course industry comes into the picture, because in the earlier session we did talk about how academia and industry perhaps need to collaborate more, need to have a greater interface to facilitate this campus to career transition. And I'm so glad that we have this roundtable where we've attempted to bring together people from industry and academia to address this very concern. So I want to now take this to Ms. Garima Babbar. Ms. Babbar, talking about some of the biggest challenges that students face while making this campus to career transition, what more do you think educational institutions of higher learning can offer these students to ease that transition? And to what extent do you think industry needs to come on board? Because earlier in the day we were talking about how we have this paradox where on the one hand we talk about unprecedented levels of unemployment in our country, which are prevailing at the moment. On the other hand, industry often complains about the talent deficit. So there is a mismatch there between the jobs on offer and the skill sets that a lot of these students come with. How would you address that?
Sure, thank you. Thank you for asking that question, which I'm often asked in multiple forums. I'll take your latter question first. That what is the expectation of the industry and how well is the industry aligned with the academic? And I think I'm really fortunate that I have Dr. Saidi Thakur also on the same panel. It was sheer coincidence. And we are closely associated with the university. We are working on the curriculum development team, guest lectures for the students, and a couple of high industry demand skills like UX skills for that matter, or it should be anything related to basics of digital literacy and creativity skills. The teams are involved, specialists are involved in designing that curriculum. And probably DY Patil University, I am naming it today by virtue of being on this panel, but similarly there are multiple universities who are leveraging industry professionals as part of their committees, academic boards, so that the curriculum that comes out, it's not that it has to be 100% aligned with the industry needs, but yes, probably even if it is 20 to 30% out there, I think that solves the purpose. So knowledge plus skills definitely enhances employability of any individual. And to your other question, yes, we are talking about a transition. And there is a culture shift. There is, I would say, a mindset shift. There is a skills shift. There is an attitude shift that is required for every student when we talk about a transition from classroom to career. Now, at that point of time, I'll just make 2 points here that what is extremely crucial at this point of time is we've spoken about curriculum. B, when it talks about the entire transition, I think it's important that students also get a lot of soft skills, basic digital skills, because we are talking about digital employability at this point in time. We are in a part of digital era, and believe you me, students are smarter than all of us who graduated about 20 years back. If you give them a skill that they retain, and then from there on, you just wait and see how they take it on from there. I'll give you an example of one of the students that we were nurturing. Of course, there was a batch of it, and today I'm going to just highlight one of those students. She created an app, and that app was used by her school during COVID days when we were all talking about mental wellness and health issues. And that is one app where she invited a lot of, her fellow students, colleagues, and even lecturers from the university, so that they could interact very well with the students who did not have access to technology. They could download that app and also go through those YouTube lectures by the various industry specialists. So I think that is the power of digital. When we include it as a part of their curriculum and industries associated, I think it's a very lethal combination that comes together. And while only employability, overall personality and confidence of the student enhances, which helps them become future leaders.
All right, those are certainly very interesting inputs from Ms. Babar. Let me now take this to Rajiv Tandon, who knows all about imparting the right kind of education to young people. Mr. Tandon, let's address a couple of important points that Ms. Babar has raised. She makes the important point about how access to technology is really, really important today because we, of course, do live in a globalized world. How do we make our education more inclusive, especially, let's say, for those who come from not so privileged backgrounds? And then this entire issue of marrying technical skills with soft skills that actually make you ready for the real world.
Thank you so much for the question. I'll just re-sequence my answer, not exactly in the sequence you have asked me. So the way I see this whole preparation of students for careers. First of all, I love the topic. I'm happy the topic was not to take facilitate students from campus to their first job. It is campus to career. That means it's far more transformatory in objective. My own sense is, when I see this particular challenge, I like to articulate it like an ABC challenge. It's an acronym in my mind, but also is talking about some other things which are very foundational when it comes to this particular challenge. A stands for, I believe, as far as the students, the institution, as far as the corporates go, we have set our alarm clocks wrong. I think Supriyo alluded to it. Okay, this whole panic about becoming prepared for the career, getting prepared for a job starts very late. And I think all these three elements have to kind of collaborate together to see that we wake up to this much early. Sometimes people tell me that when you start preparing people for a career in the first year, maybe it is too early, because we know that technologies are changing, skills required are changing. By the time they're in the third year or the fourth year, things will change completely. But the fact is, I think industry is also telling us more than just the name of the skills. They're also telling us very clearly that there are certain skills which go beyond hard skills. I think since morning we are hearing about agility, adaptability, creativity, problem solving. Remember, all these skills are very hard to build when the time is short. I think many of these skills are also, the industry will tell you, they have the hardest challenge to meet. Sometimes they say they want data science, they want AI and IoT, but when you actually see them recruit, there's this classic marketing paradigm. When you ask a customer what do they want, they tell you something. But when you see them actually behaving in their recruitment practices, it could be completely different. So I think many of those skills we have to start early and start building them far earlier. And I think technology can also play a big role, because not all the colleges, institutions have the capacity to upgrade those skills in a very explicit manner. But then many of those aspects can today the access could be there through the technology itself. The second part of the acronym is box learning. I'm sure we all are beginning to realize that the world just does not require specialists, and we do require people who have interdisciplinary capabilities. I'm not sure if many of you have read this very recent book called The Range. There's a lot of research which is saying that the world out there has wicked problems, not simple problems. So if we are preparing our students, majoring into one area or allied areas very closely related to that, we're not really preparing them for a career. This whole interdisciplinary aspect of education has to be focused on. We believe a lot that in BITS Pilani, we have close to 60,000 plus alumni, and you would be surprised to believe almost 7,000 out of them are actually founders and entrepreneurs. Close to about 6,000 are people with 6 CXO titles. Now how, if I, when I really meet these people, they tell me that because in the educational environment, we were not just focusing on the, program major or the specialization we were also going for other fields. So this whole aspect of preparing people for wicked problems, which is what the industry requires, also requires interdisciplinary, education. And third, of course, I think people have talked about the C, which is collaboration. I think the whole industry academy of collaboration, 30 years back, if you go to a conference like this, everyone would still be saying, the industry academy of collaboration is not there. Even now everyone is talking about it. I think this is a problem sometimes I suspect we love, because we are just keeping this problem alive always. But the fact is, there are examples worldwide where this problem has been solved, and we have to see that we address this more strategically and not tactically. CHRO coming and saying, give me 200 people in cloud computing immediately is only stating a tactical requirement. University saying, I have these 100 people in a particular domain who are still unemployed, I want you to take them is also a tactical requirement. But I think it's the overall, engagement, which will strategic engagement with the industry understands the priorities of an institution, and the institution also has to empathize. Sometimes we don't empathize with, the desperate calls of the industry which come to us. I think it's that collaboration, the deep collaboration which will do that magic. So of course, this need not remain. All these three aspects need not remain with the top institutions. And I think there again, technology is something which will make this really shareable. There are efforts by the government. There are also efforts, made by institutions, top institutions already in the country. I think we have to all, in fact, I can share with you something very recent. Just 2 days back, Ms. Pilani collaborated with the Telangana government to make available all the digital labs, because there's this huge requirement of people learning practical skills, but not all institutions have all the high fidelity labs. So we have actually created an ecosystem which can be shared among institutions, among the students, not just in one institution, but also at the other places. So many ways technology can also aid us in doing that.
Absolutely. Technology is a tool that we simply cannot do without anymore in any sphere of our life, and I think that's equally applicable in the sphere of education. You've made some very interesting points. I want to take this to Pradipto Chakrabarti. Mr. Chakrabarti, we've been told by Mr. Tandon that even though we talk a lot about this much needed collaboration between academia and industry, yet it would seem as if at some levels they're still operating in silos. Why is this much needed dialogue and interface not taking place in a more institutionalized manner? Is that part of the problem? When we talk about bridging the divide that exists, in the education sector or in the, employability arena, is this one big hole that needs to be plugged? And also interestingly, he talks about the need for interdisciplinary education. Do you think that is the need of the hour as industry concerned, and are educational institutions catering to that need adequately?
So I'll again answer thanks for asking. I'll answer your second part of the question first. So interdisciplinary, it's a very interesting thing Rajiv pointed out. In my observation, and that's what I do as a part of my job role, is to talk to academic institutions, professors, teachers, educators, and students. And what I realize is that he also used the word box learning. And unfortunately today, even today, when the industry is talking at a much more faster pace, the academic institutions still that box learning, computer science, engineering, IT, which I still don't understand what is the difference between IT and computer science engineering, but it's still there. And many other such boxes, So it is definitely the need of our. But I would like to go, you're talking about collaboration, and I would like to go one level down, deeper down into understanding or trying to give some suggestions in terms of how to resolve this. See, collaboration is not about, oh yes, the industry requires these people, academic institutions will fulfill that, the supply demand. The core of an institution, and we have two very eminent academicians here, is the educator. And I don't think that collaboration reaches to that level of the educator. And I always say that I'm sure there are many teachers here, and Professor Sharma also alluded to it. What is the role of the educator? And can I go to at a length and say that just like the students have an internship, can an educator also have an internship? So today everything is moving towards a guided self-paced learning model. Just like what previous panel observed, that students are very smart. They can self-learn. So what is the role of the educator? The role of the educator is, it's not about the institution, it's about the educator, who is going to give that one last mile of connect that will help them transition from the campus to the career. And that is where I think we fail, because the educators have to teach a prescribed syllabus, which is a part of their job. But that might or might not actually fit with what the requirement is. Hence, if a situation comes where the educator, like what Professor Sharma said, can be a partner to the learning, and is that person who actually brings that industry flavor, that if you're talking about cybersecurity engineer or a cybersecurity administrator, one part of it is that what does that person do, and there are 5 steps to do it. On the other hand, the professor gets or the educator gets an exposure to the actual environment, brings back that practical aspect. One part is the lab that he was talking about. The other part is also actually see. And there's a classic example. I was a very close friend, acquaintance of mine, who was a professor, who was an educator, and then moved and joined a private enterprise, and he was at loss. He had to learn everything from scratch because he thought that he knows everything about networking, technology, and cybersecurity. And he joins this company, and he does not know how to, troubleshoot. And he calls me up and said, "I don't know. Help me to get some certifications now." And that's how the journey begins. So, to summarize your question, educator is the core as a partner. Exposure and collaboration is where you get educators to expose into the real life environment, and third is guided self-paced. I think those are the key things.
I find it fascinating that you've dwelt so much on the role of the educator, and we're lucky we have illustrious educators on our panel. So let me take this to Dr. Sayali. Ma'am, you heard what Mr. Chakravarti just said, and I find it quite fascinating that he believes that the role of the educator is critical in the campus to career transition that a young person makes. He asked repeatedly, what is the role of the educator? So let me ask you this question. What in today's context do you believe is truly the role of the educator? As we discussed in the previous panel discussion, the educator is no longer just a teacher. They're also constantly learning and evolving themselves. Do you believe that the time has come for educators also perhaps to seek greater exposure to the world?
Campus to career, then again talking about sustainable development, all those activities. But I think this is, we need to really think very seriously that how every student, every citizen of this country can get really benefited what efforts we are doing. I was going to a presentation in the morning, and they said that we are going to have mentors, we are going to have coaches. Are these coaches are going to be available to our students in classroom? Can they really talk to them? See, the online will help you. No, the notes text are not, we talk about 20% audio is always remembered. But I think once the teacher comes and try to understand, our education system believes in individual development, not into the mass development. And individual development always happens in classroom. When teacher comes, when teachers give a pat on the back, when teachers ask the question, why are you not able to? Because I think that's a very famous cartoon, or I think a very nice, the picture I've seen that a fish is also there, a snake is also there. Everyone is there in the education system. And in my class, I have different sets of people. I need to understand their need, right? And I think that's very important. And even, so when you're talking about, I'm taking 2 minutes and then I'll stop. I think the career, the campus to career, it means that even after the education, how many students as an alumni, they would like to come back to us, right? I'm not talking about grades, I'm not talking about IIMs, I'm not talking about those people, but I'm talking about the campuses where the masses, in my campus more than 25,000, 30,000 students are there. So how many of them they would like to come back? Are we really a knowledge reservoir for this country as a university? And I think these things are required to be taken. We need to attract even working professionals to our campuses. They should come to us, and can all these companies, I'm really happy, I'm a fan of Coursera. I have made it compulsory to all my students, right? Even Adobe, I have done it. NASCOM, I'm working with them. Future Skills, SOCAM. Every organization I'm trying to explore this. But one more thing which is very important, that how can we really develop students not only in campuses, even outside the campuses. And that's the responsibility of all of us now, because you all are also in education business. So now it is not only universities, the platforms whosoever is creating, they need to address the challenges, needs, and the expectations of our field. And then the faculty development, what Sir has said, I totally agree. And because we have made a point that in performance appraisal, we are going to reduce the vacations in campus, and we are going to say that they have to spend at least 1 month in industry, because industries have changed enormously. And if we don't update ourselves, we cannot come back to the classes and teach the students. So I think these are the questions since from the morning which I am carrying out in my mind, and I would like to get these answers from all of you, right? And that's why I thought I took 2 minutes more. So thank you so much for.
Also need to constantly re-educate themselves, perhaps. You also make a very interesting point about whether the alumni would want to come back to some of these institutes is perhaps a barometer of the quality of education that is being imparted. But as I go to Dr. Ajay Rana, I just want to, in a sense, draw a contrast between two opinions that we heard on this panel. We heard Pradipta Chakrabarti saying earlier that, one of the challenges that we still face in the education sector vis-a-vis employability is that, the strict adherence to syllabi is a bit of a problem, because these syllabi are not necessarily in sync with the changing times and with the requirements of industry and the constantly evolving job market. On the other hand, Dr. Sayari Dankar says, gone are the days when we would just stick to textbooks. Our education has gone way beyond that. It is now about innovation and critical thinking and the rest of it. My question to you is, do you believe that we still have a fairly long distance to cover, or as Matt suggests, are we doing pretty well to bridge that gap? Where are we at? Because I'm pretty sure we're somewhere in the middle. We perhaps talked about two extremes. Are we somewhere in the middle right now? How much more distance do we need to cover?
Thank you, Ma'am Khanda. In fact, my guru, Professor P.V. Sharma is in front of me. And when the Professor P.V. Sharma sir educate about not only the mechanical field, but the computer science, IT, electronics, computer science, or the human values. So that is not the boundary with respect to any individuals. The first and most important thing is that, man, we are not here the business point of view that education is the business. We are the torch bearer. We are the person, gurus, who have produced many CEOs, many prime ministers, the president, not only for our country, but across the globe. It is our responsibility to fulfill the mission and the vision of parents. As a private education institution, syllabus, NEP, SWAN, NPTEL, or other policies or integrated degrees or history for engineers, law for engineers, nothing is free in this world. Everyone wants the money. If you go with some certifications, you have to pay the additional money. If you go with some government policy, NPTEL or so and so, free of cost is okay. But is the another university accept that one? If you want to, then please show us the credentials or the credit. The NPT or some other portal said pay the first fee, 1500 plus GST, then you will receive the one credentials from the government side and we merge in our academy. What is the fault between about the parents? They pay the heavy fee. With respect to management point of view, everyone, private institution love, I say love to the new experience of the admissions. Whenever they find the good number of the student, talented or the brilliant, here I not compare three world institutions in our country. You think they have the 50 years of background, but they are not able to produce a single prime minister or the president of our country. So think about the syllabus. Now point is that expectation with respect to industry. We as an education institution receive the soil, raw material.
raw material from the parents, like the students pass out from schools. And it is our responsibility how to convert this small raw materials of soil or the small, about the soil into a clay. When we received, Madam Curie received the second time Nobel Award, one time in physics and other in the chemistry, how is possible? So AI or machine learning, they are not the rocket science. At that time, Madam Curie assumed that is my wish. After 20 or 30 years, machine can talk, or machine will work like this. So this time, now it is up to the individuals how we convert this raw material that we receive from the parents. We are like I am with MIT for the last 22 years. We have around 2.5 lakh alumni, those who work across the globe. How we connect all these things, not only for our nation, but it is our responsibility, like about Mother Earth. So we are not here like about the customer, the students or the parents, they are not our customers. They are our product. We are the torch bearer, but it is up to the industry, all industry, like Cisco. I thank you, Rohit, and the SAP and all other companies. Then they plan to visit our campus, take around thousands of the students and groom them as per their demand. As per machine learning, deep learning, Infosys have a huge platform for 3 to 6 months. They groom them. But where we fall from our side, we are not here to produce the quality of education. So now, when we produce a clay from the education institution, it is the industry demand or the industry view how to convert this beautiful clay or this clay into the beautiful dolls. Wow, so Brito said that IT and CS, there is a huge difference between IT and CS. Because I'm the CSD professor, my responsibility is a basic fundamental. But IT, so Brito here, we change the syllabus after 2 years, every 2 years. So we are the educationists, play our role, but industry also play their role as well. So humble request to you, ethics, values and sanskar, to we groom the future leaders. We are the torch bearer. As a teacher, I always feel more proud. I am totally surprised what type of professor that not justify with respect to their current job and move to the industry. We are the professors who always feel more proud that we are not the person who has a second job. We are the person who will be responsible for our, not Mother India. Earlier we had the Mother India movie. Now all the persons, Manish, if you have the time to make a Mother World movie. Now world is so connected. During pandemic we are witness why Indians so proud. Why are we more proud? I'm not comparing my country with Singapore and US. Singapore and US, everyone feel more proud. US citizens pay around 91% to 93% pay their taxes. Lot of the persons said about India, पहले सोने की चिड़िया होता था. I said, मेरा India आज सोने का हाथी है. Not about the golden bird. How is possible? Singapore, 99% people pay the taxes. What about India? We pay only 7 to 9% taxes and take care about 91% population of our country. Whenever we pay around 100% taxes, then you compare our country with respect to the other ones. So I humble request to all the industry partners, make a uniform relationship with all 3 world institutions to 5 words like committee. I have 5 words. Make a one, this motive of the hand. So transparency, equality, and persons belong to all institutions, small or big. They are our future. They are our, you said that about the future product, not only for Mother India, but across the globe. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We're completely out of time, so my apologies once again to the organizers for going overtime. But we'll quickly conclude by saying it's been absolutely fascinating to hear divergent views on this panel. One can clearly see that industry and academia do not see eye to eye on a lot of issues, and I think that is actually great. It is encouraging because that is a sign that a much needed dialogue and debate has truly begun, and that is the only way we can find a way forward. So it's been fascinating listening to all of you, even if the views were divergent. Thank you very much to all of you for having been a wonderful audience. Thank you.
Panelists for putting your views forward. May I please request Mr. Supriyo Chaudhary, President, Digital Commonwealth, to kindly please present the awards of thought leadership to our panel. Ready for that? Zoردar Talia. Us here. Once again, a huge round of applause. ताली के लिए भी जोरदार तालियां। For Ms. Garima. Huge round of applause once again. And we have a bouquet for our moderator, as we already handed over the award to her in the earlier session. And a huge round of applause for our moderator. And may I request Mr. Raja Das सभी के लिए जोरदार तालियां। On stage, the representatives of Employability.life team who have relentlessly worked to make this conference a wholehearted success. Requesting our representatives to kindly come so that we can immediately after this photograph invite them on the dais. The team behind the show, we must thank them and congratulate them for such an amazing effort that they put forward.